to see you, man.
Good to see
How have
you
you been?
too. I've been good. I've been good. I've been busy.
Yeah,
It's been nice. I forgot that I wasn't here this time last year. There's all this kind of weather we're having that I'm like, right, I wasn't here this time last year. So, yeah,
yeah, man. It's been a whole year exactly.
I know.
Time
Crazy.
flies, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. How have you been? What's been going
But
on?
must be pretty exciting. Ah, well, I was just gonna say it must be exciting with the book stuff, but we can talk about that
Yeah,
as we
yeah.
talk about our interview. For me, I've been all right. Just wrapping up the year. It's so quickly. It's October.
I know.
And given the year, I'm just reflecting like, what have I been doing comic wise? I've been doing a lot of illustrations. I just haven't been working on too many comics, um,
Interesting.
which is which I got to get on. But yeah, man, it's been good. Just nothing. No major developments, work and house
Mhm.
stuff, and
Yeah,
everything's been smooth. Yeah,
that's
Fiji's been all
nice.
right. Getting a bit cooler right now, which is nice. Usually it's very hot. What's it like in San Fran? You're in San Fran. No,
Um,
San
I'm
Fran or San Diego?
I'm about no, I'm in San Francisco, but I'm about an hour north at the moment. We've
Yeah, yeah.
got this cabin that's up in the mountains, and we
Oh,
have had California has had a huge storm system hit the last couple days, and so there's been flooding and it's cold, and this is the first time I've taken out a flannel shirt since about April.
oh shit.
Um, so we're definitely in the thick of fall for some
Okay,
reason. So
right.
October's always a bit of a crapshoot. Sometimes it's like 90 degrees and sometimes it's like 40. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. But here it's either rain or sun.
right.
Sometimes both, if you're unlucky. But that's it. That's all
Both
we
at the
get.
same time and it's 90 degrees and raining. Ooh,
Right. Yeah.
ooh,
Hey, man. Yeah, but I'm so glad I got to pair up with you.
yeah,
I was supposed to be doing this with Finn, and then he's just sort of he's I guess he's just so busy. But
it has been busy.
def yeah, man. But I'm so glad I get to
Yeah.
talk to one of the artists that's actually getting their project published, man. But we'll
Yeah,
get to
that's
that. We'll
right.
save that. We'll save that. So I figured since we got two sessions, maybe we can do one where I ask you questions, and then
That's great.
how do you want to do it, or do you want to just go back and forth?
I think we can do go back and forth. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that I don't know that I want to spend a whole 40 minutes just talking about myself.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm sort of curious. I mean, it's interesting because I feel I mean, the reason why, and I think I told you this, the reason why I wanted to be part of this call was because the workshop was the only thing that I can kind of point to and be like, that's one of the reasons I did that book. Like, if it hadn't been for that workshop, I wouldn't have done it.
Really?
And I think that that's, not that I'm, ultimately I did the work, but I would not have had the fire in under my butt to do it. And I was really glad to have this residency to do that. Now, granted, I lied to get into the workshop, but lying's fine, right?
What do you mean? Hey, lied in what way? Because you came to the workshop with your book like quite a lot of it done or like
Right.
almost done, right? Yeah. So it's not like you started the book because of the workshop, but was the workshop the fire you needed to complete the book, or what
Yeah, I
fill
mean,
me in.
what happened was, and I thought I had told you the story. I think I told it to somebody else, but so I had been applying to a bunch of residencies and fellowships, and I had gotten none of them. And I pretty much can say I don't think I was even close to getting any of them. I got none of them. And so I someone sent me this post about Comic Arts Workshop, and I just thought I can't get a residency in Bakersfield, California. What makes me think I'm going to get one in Australia? Like, come on. And so I applied with a little bit of like, okay, let's see what a waste of time this is going to be. And in doing so, I did that thing that we all do where we're trying to sort of fill in what we think the person wants to hear. And I said, I have this book that I'm working on. I'd love to be able to bring it. I've got it done. It's about 75% of the way done. And so by the time the residency comes, I'll be finished and I'd love to bring it in its entirety. I mean, it's a 450 50-page book, and I think I was on a page 105 at that point.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so when I got the email that I'd been accepted, I just thought, great. Oh shit, what have I done? And um I just remember thinking I mean that day I like went downstairs and I was like I gotta make a plan because it is like the end of April and I gotta turn this in the 1st of September and I'm in the first act barely. And so I did I mean I did the whole book between 1st of May and when you saw it.
Well,
So,
while we're on that, just tell us about the book. What is the what for the benefit of people who
yep.
weren't at core, and yeah, what's the book about?
The book is based on some experiences that my family had. Um, in 1985, I had just gone to college, and my father had a coworker who was sick and who'd been evicted from his apartment, and he invited him to move into our house, and the guy had a couple of dogs. Um, what he told us was that the man had cancer and he'd fallen on some hard times.
Mm,
And what really was true was that the man had AIDS. And this was before Rock Hudson. This was before people really knew what it was. And he moved into our house and he and my sister developed a bit of a friendship. And I just kind of took it from there. It's based on something that's true, but when I moved to New York in 87, I did some work with people with AIDS. And I just kind of took a lot of those experiences and kind of tacked them onto the end of the book with, you know, as if my sister was experiencing them. And, I had spent a lot of time talking with people and I sort of incorporated those stories into this novel. And that's what it's about. So,
yeah,
and it's
man.
about my parents and our family and kind of what that experience did to my family. And
Right,
um, it was great for it not to be a memoir because I could kind of use that freedom to make up stuff if I needed to and help the story when
right.
I needed it to. And so,
Hmm.
yeah.
Mm.
So,
Interesting, man. And I can't wait to get my hands on it.
yep.
And the I love the personal aspect of the story. The art for it in the sample pages that you brought, they just blew me away, man. And just your art in
You.
general, you were definitely one of my favorite artists at core.
Mm.
It has
You're
such
one of
a
my favorite artists.
well, man, we're everybody's, but no, but seriously, like I was thinking about it on the way down in the car, and like, I wanted to tell you when I was thinking about your art. It reminded me, like the closest thing I could think about is when when you see some cartoons, especially like stuff from like the 60s and 70s, when they try to illustrate jazz.
Hmm.
There's like the bold colors with with solid lines and the loose lines.
Right.
The imagery for it was amazing, So what
Thanks.
was the approach for you in terms of the art for the book? Was it just your personal style, or was it something you wanted the book to look like in your head?
Yeah. For me, sketchbooks have always sort of looked like memory. Like if you had to take memory, the concept of memory,
Hmm.
and sort of put it into a visual format, I think it would always be a sketchbook because sketchbooks have that ability to kind of put images on top of each other. Some things are tight, some things are really loose. I sort of feel
Hmm.
like that's how memory works, and so I wanted it to have that feeling. I also really like sketchbooks, and I also knew that there was no way I could do things. One thing I think you're really good at is sort of character development, and I am terrible with that. So I knew that if I draw a face 5 times about somebody, it's going to look 5 different ways. And in a sketchbook, that's fine. In a comic book, not as fine. So, that was one of the things that I took away from that workshop, that there were people that could do that really well, and I am not one of them.
Oh
Um,
man.
so
You say that, but I saw some of your other comics that you bought, and I was so sad that you only bought like the single
I know.
like prints of these books because the one with the grandparents, the old couple,
Yeah.
I loved that one, and that one
Oh.
you conveyed emotion so well between panel to panel, keeping the characters in order and stuff. Do you do a lot of these? Do you find as a storyteller or as a comic artist? Does all your work just draw from things around you, or like you were saying, like your book, for example, it's based on a true story, but with space to sort of add things if you want. Is that your approach to?
Yeah, I
Do you
mean,
see yourself doing
I
more
think that
stories like that?
I look around at the comic artists that I have seen,
Hmm.
um, and it's interesting you would bring this up because I'm going to bring it around to something about your book.
Okay.
But I feel incredibly uncomfortable writing about stuff that I have no idea about because I am sure I'm going to get it wrong. And
Mhm.
and so I worry. But the thing is, if I know just the basic idea about it, if I've been around an old person that has lost their ability to communicate, or my family, I mean, my family was great because it's like I knew all of it, but I could kind of play with it if I needed to.
Mm.
Um, so I do kind of start with some place that I am familiar with. And the next few couple of book projects that I'm interested in doing are all things that I know well. So I feel like I have that. And one of the things, one of the things that, and I said this to you in our workshop, your workshop, was that I had just I knew so little about Fiji, and you were writing about Fiji historically, lovingly, all kinds of things. And I was really curious about that. So I want to hear about what's happening with you the last year in terms of like how you approached your work, how you applied for this residency, and what made you want to apply in the first place.
Yeah, well, I can't remember how I came across the residency. I think I saw it on Instagram or something. I'm not really sure, but as soon as I saw it, I knew I wanted to do it because making comics in Fiji is it gets very lonely.
I
I
can
don't I
bet.
don't know. Yeah, I don't know too many comic artists here. Um, I know a lot of like cartoonists and illustrators, but comics, that particular medium, you know. So I thought
Why
the
do you think that
workshop.
is? I mean, what is it about? It just people aren't interested. It doesn't. I'm just curious.
I think a lot of the artists in Fiji, they're commercial artists. They do paintings or they do portraits. They do a lot of commission art. They do murals, and I think they don't have the maybe the patience or the not, I wouldn't say patience, maybe the time to
Right.
sit down and or maybe it's just a medium they don't explore locally because all we ever learn in art school here for the is cultural art. So it's either something that has to do with culture like pottery or
Hmm.
traditional painting, or it's sort of like the high end portraits or fine art. And I guess people haven't found a way to merge them in the comic medium locally.
Is there like a rich history of like storytelling on Fiji? Is it one of those
Oh
things
man,
that's
yeah, no, definitely. Pacific Islanders in general are
right?
just they're all about storytelling. You know, like we've
Yeah.
all seen Moana. There's stories in every.
Moana.
Yeah, it's the truth to it is there's stories in every facet of Pacific
Right.
culture. Like even if someone just did a carving on a table, that
Yeah.
the carvings, the symbols would all be someone's lifeline or something, you know?
Right.
So song, dance, not traditionally things like cave paintings and all that. That's not something that happens a lot in the Pacific. They are finding some here and there, but traditionally it's mostly storytelling through dance and song.
Hmm.
Yeah, and maybe carving. So,
So comics
so,
does feel
so
really different than a lot of that.
yeah, the printed art, like putting something down in a visual narrative, it's not a thing. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-mm. Or just oral folk tales, which is a reason why most, and not just in the Pacific, but a lot of indigenous cultures, a lot of the tales get lost is because they just told stories around campfires. No one actually bothered to write anything down. So,
Right.
yeah.
So for the people who don't know,
Mhm.
what is the project that you brought to the workshop?
Okay,
What was
yeah.
that
So yeah,
about?
so I applied. I saw the thing for core. I applied with. I was working on a book called Kania, which is itoke for consume or eat a lot of, and it's a zombie. It's basically a the premise of it is it's basically a zombie horror story set in pre-colonial Fiji. But then the undertone for it is sort of like the bigger stuff. It's got a lot of stuff to do with cultural identity, foreign powers coming to the country, a bit of colonialism and things like that. So it's all that set against the backdrop of a zombie horror novel and or horror graphic novel. And when I first got the script down, I originally envisioned it as an animated film or
Hmm.
maybe a four-part series, and then I was
Right.
like, I might as well just draw this. I do comics. I'll draw it into a comic book. I've got the script already. So when I sent the script to Core, I had the first chapter down, and then or not the chapter, but the first issue at least. I saw it as a four-part comic series, which we can then put into a graphic novel. So I had the first one down, and that's what I sent. And again, I was kind of hoping, I won't lie, I was kind of hoping that the Pacific angle would get me in. I couldn't imagine too many people having like a Pacific comic in there.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty cool. And I was so excited when I actually did get picked up. And the cool thing about it was they made us write a letter. Remember that? It wasn't
Yeah.
just an email. You had to
Yeah.
write a letter. So that was interesting because my handwriting sucks.
What did
So I
you
think
what did you write about in your letter?
I wrote that. I wrote like this is the book I'm working on. I want it to be sort of everything I said. It's a cultural piece. It's
Mhm.
about colonialism. It's about but it's all this human drama against the zombie background. And I'm a comic artist. I'm self-taught. But and the thing that I wanted from core was the reason I wanted to be there is I wanted to be amongst other artists. I wanted to see how other comic artists did work. I wanted to see how they approached their projects.
Yep.
And I wanted them I wanted the mentorship that core offered. I want because I've been doing
Because
things in
don't have
isolation.
a lot of opportunity to be around people who make comics on Fiji.
Yeah, yeah. Or just in comics in general. So I
Right.
wanted to see
Right.
how people do stuff, and then the whole idea of that sort of that peer mentorship of or the peer critique and stuff. That's what I wanted. I wanted to hear from other artists about my work while also reflecting on their work.
What was the thing that I'm just curious about, so that was sort of your expectation going in.
Hmm.
What was the actual workshop like in terms of those expectations? What did you
Okay.
Was it kind of what you expected? I mean, was it
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, when I first got there, I think the first 2 days, it felt very intense.
it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah, like especially coming from but being by myself and then being suddenly being in a room with like 14 other artists.
Yeah.
And then I felt like everybody was like not everybody, but some artists were just so intense,
Mm.
and everybody was just so ready to express themselves. And so a couple of times I had to kind of just shut down and just process what was going on. And it was also interesting how because there were talks of like doing masters in comics, and it made the whole comic book
Yeah.
process so scholarly and clinical
Yeah.
for a while, just at the start,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
get it.
And yeah, and because for me, I didn't I knew the steps of the process, but I kind of just did it. It's like how when you when you fry an egg or if you're making a salad, you kind of just do it. But then some chef would be like, you add the vinegar first, or you add the salt to activate this flavor. I kind of just did things without knowing why I was doing them, and to have everything in this cohesive, scholarly, educational, clinical thing for the first 2 days, it was a
Hmm.
bit weird. But then as I got to know everybody, and everybody started opening up, and we started doing the actual workshops for the book for
Hmm.
everybody's books, then it it kind of started sinking in. I guess I kind of had a bit of like imposter syndrome as well in the beginning because everybody was
Right.
such everyone felt like these fully fleshed out artists, and I'm just some dude who draws shit in his bedroom. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah,
that's
well,
how I
which is
felt.
funny because
Yeah.
your work is so accomplished in terms of like like you sit down and you're like, I know exactly what I'm doing drawing wise, and your stuff is has a polish that mine certainly doesn't. I mean, I'm like with a pencil like drawing a circle, and you're just like doing these really interesting lines and characters, and everything feels really like tight, and I don't know.
Thank you.
I definitely had some digital envy with you in
Oh
terms
yeah.
of
Okay.
like I don't do anything like that.
Hmm.
And there were people that, there were a couple of artists that work very digitally that were there that I was just amazed by. Like
Oh yeah.
your work and Ramina's work, and I was like,
Yeah.
I can't even make a circle on an iPad. I mean, no, I can't because I came back and I was like, I gotta learn some digital shit.
Oh,
So
really? Interesting.
yeah.
Wow. So you've been working with some digital stuff over the last year or so?
Yeah, I literally came home and I needed a new Australia was like the last gasp of my laptop. And so when I went to the Apple store, when I came home, I went to the Apple store to buy a new laptop and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna buy an iPad too because I had some money that I had set aside and the computer wasn't as expensive as I thought. And I thought,
Hmm.
I'm gonna learn the iPad. And then it sat for 6 months and I was a little afraid of it. But
Right.
now we're friends and I'm
Okay.
learning Procreate with the best of them.
Oh, I had the exact opposite reaction to
Oh,
call
really?
because the reason I got into, I mean, I started off doing pen and ink stuff, but the reason I got the iPad is because, again, art supplies in Fiji is hard to come by,
Right.
colored paints and inks and things like that for drawing comic books. You can get like lots of acrylics and stuff but like coloring for comics, pages, for layouts and things, you can't get those here.
Hmm.
So Procreate was the way to go. But then when I got there and I saw people working with pen and ink, especially Meg, she was working with the ink brushes and ink
Yeah.
wells and stuff. And then Lee was there with his
Lee was
beautiful
amazing to
gouache
watch.
paintings. Yeah, yeah, watching him work. So I was like, that inspired me. So when I came home, one of the first things I did was I bought a whole bunch of nibs and pens and brushes. So I'm trying to
Mhm.
go the other way. I want to do more physical stuff.
That's funny. Did you
Yeah,
happen to notice? I mean, the thing is that's unique with you and I is there weren't that many. There were a couple of people that had come from other places. There was somebody from Singapore and someone from Malaysia and someone from France, but they all had either had come to that workshop before or
mm,
had they had a some sort of a base in Australia. But you and I were unique in that we had no base like in
right,
Australia. Like we were invited guests of the Australian Arts Council, and
right.
I wondered what you noticed because I certainly did. What you noticed being looking at Australians and how they like what you noticed about Australians and art and that
Mm.
you know what
Okay.
I mean?
Yeah, yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, that was interesting as well. How when you got there, everybody sort of knew each other. Everyone was excited to see each other
Yeah,
as well. And
yeah.
then you were kind of like the guy in the yeah. I was not you. I mean like you as in like me. I was like the guy just sort of in the corner, like, oh man, I gotta make friends, you know. And but I thought everybody was so everyone was as again, like probably by Monday, Tuesday, I was pretty close to calling my friend who was living in Canberra because he was like, dude, if you want, I can pick you up on Saturday. You can come and do
A
the
week
weekend and we
early.
can go. Yeah. No, no, no. You can just come and spend the weekend and go back on
Oh, right, right,
Monday, you
right,
know?
right, right, right,
And I was considering that.
right.
But then I don't know. And then suddenly, once you just got to know everybody, I think once they got over the initial excitement of seeing each other again, then they were open to making new friends.
Yeah.
Then it kind of worked out. And then but in terms of Australian artists like Pat, I would love waking up in the morning and just picking his brain about art and stuff. It was weird because he was like so decidedly, I'm not doing comics, you know, like I don't want to talk about comics. But it was cool picking his brain. But yeah, no, in terms of the other artists, I think it was the first Saturday
Hmm.
that we were there. I think you, me, and Ariel and Sarah, right? We went for lunch.
Yeah.
Did we? Yeah, we went for lunch and we did a bit of shopping, and that really helped sort of ease me in as well. And like
Yeah.
then so by that was like after that I was like, yeah, this is great. I've got people to hang out with and talk to and stuff. But before that, I really felt like a fly on the wall, just watching things happen.
Hmm.
Yeah. What
No,
about you?
I think the thing that I noticed is and it's funny because I didn't expect it when I got there, but Australia has I'm sure they may disagree, but in the US it is so hard to get things like grants and
Oh,
comics
okay.
is certainly thought to be something that it's not as highbrow as art and it's certainly
Mm,
not as competitive as I mean, it's as competitive as some of the other art forms, but it's not given quite the same shake that other art forms are given.
mm,
And it's interesting because, like, one of the first things I got to Australia a couple days before the workshop, and I went. One of the participants, Lee, had just got this big grant for some
mm,
work that he had done at the college in Sydney, and I went and
mm-hmm,
saw his show, and I was
mm,
like, you know, people were getting. I think everybody certainly certainly Win and Eloise and Lee had all benefited from some kind of a grant and were able to and there were people that had been at the workshop before that had like taken 6 months off to work on their comics and that is relatively unheard of in the US. Like that was I came home and a friend asked me about it and I was like, they've got money. Like they're giving comic
right.
artists money. And they're like,
Yeah.
from where? And I'm like, they just
Yeah.
prioritize it.
Yeah, I
Like,
was thinking the same thing. Yeah, no, yeah,
we take our extra money and make like tanks and guns, and they're taking money and like paying artists. It's like
right.
this is where this is truly amazing. Um,
Yeah, no, yeah. In that sense, afterwards, yeah, no, no, yeah. Outside of core, I afterwards when I was looking at when I started following all these artists that I met, and uh, I couldn't. It did shock me as to how big the indie comic scene is in Australia,
right.
especially when you follow them now, and they're always having some kind of expo or they're always
Oh
having some
yeah,
kind of get together and
it
stuff.
is
That's
alive and
amazing.
well.
Mm-mm.
So,
Yeah.
which was really inspiring. I felt like I had been invited to a party of the
Mm.
coolest people that I wanted to stay with.
Right.
And then I came home and I was like, okay, I just need to do the best work I can because I feel like I don't know. I mean, there was just the idea that you would. I mean, there was a whole discussion which you mentioned where people were talking about getting like, their PhDs, and I just thought if you got a PhD in comics, that is a waste of time in the US. Like
Right.
no, like
Oh yeah.
what job would you get? Like,
Right.
you know, people who are teaching, which I guess is what that would lead to, are
Mm,
coming from people who've published. And
mm,
so it was interesting. It was interesting being there and seeing how a society had prioritized its arts and being deeply jealous of
yeah.
what that could be if that could be applied across to other countries, the US, since I know the
Mm.
US, and I'm sure Fiji too. Like it would be amazing if there was that kind of opportunity,
Oh yeah. In Fiji, it's interesting in the way that there's lots of grants for just art. Like if you want to do a poster, or if you want to do a painting, people
right?
do that kind of stuff, you know. Comics, not. I've done a lot of commission work for illustration for
Mhm.
just books, but like just illustrations, not really graphic novel
Right.
stuff, you know. So there's a lot of money for that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, but comics is an art form, definitely something that we need to pursue some more here. And again, yeah, just what listening to people get grants or taking like I was talking to, I can't remember who I was talking to. I think it was Josh or somebody. I can't remember who it was. Man, I feel really bad. But I remember talking to somebody about like, oh, I'm gonna go back and finish this book, you know? And it's like, how long? How long is the book? It's probably about 300 pages. And it's like, how long do you think it'll take you to do it? And I was like, oh, probably I'll try it maybe a year or maybe a couple of months. And he was like, nah, it's got to take you about 2 or 3 years, to finish this, or maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
Like if you want to do like if it's 300 pages, you don't rush it. Like you get a grant or try and get like a support for it. And the idea of taking time out to work on a book, or it's new to me. I kind of do comics in whatever space and time I can get. I've got my
Yeah.
date, my full job. I've got stuff at home. I've got the wife. I've got like 6 cats. So whenever I can find time. But and I envy people who can just whose job it is to just make comics. But then again, there were people, and I'm not going to drop names for just I don't want to make them feel awkward or anything. But there were people who were telling me like that they have to get their next project or they have to get the grant for the next project because this is all they do. Like if they're not making a book, they're not going to be making money. So that's also
Yeah, but I think
like
that
the
one of the
negative, I
things
guess.
that I heard from that was, yeah, I mean, that's difficult no matter where you are and doing, but I think that it was so, I mean, I guess the glass half full way to look at that is it's like how
Mm-mm,
great that you live someplace where those things are possible. Like, I don't have a
mm-mm,
single friend or colleague in comics that thinks, I need to get my next grant so I can keep working on this book without a job.
mm-mm.
Like nobody here is saying that. Nobody,
Right.
they're saying, um, they're saying, I've got, I'm gonna do this regardless of if I have a job or not, or I'm gonna save money, or, I took a year, but I had freelanced a bunch and I had some money to save that I was like, look, this is important to me and I want to try this. Um, now I feel like I'm gonna try to do it a little bit more and maybe do some teaching and freelancing on the side and try to find some balance to be able to
Right.
do comics full time. But
Mm-mm.
it is not a job that people get paid for, unfortunately. And
Really, even with like the industry there, like I'm just an outsider looking into the States, but a lot of the people that I follow on Instagram, at least, they're artists who work for like independent publishers or smaller publishers. Like even the guys who published my first comic,
Mhm.
Salinialo, they're in San Francisco, and they're
Yep.
always looking for smaller artists. So it looks like the indie scene is booming there, but is it just people not quitting their day jobs and just hustling, or
I think so. I think the vast majority of people that are trying to, I mean, they might have like a small press, but I guarantee you that they're not either making enough money to make ends meet, or they're using other people's art to kind of promote, to kind of get the stuff, and they're not doing the art themselves. I think that the people
right,
who are actually doing the comics really are forced to, and I think most of the people I know fall in this category, that they basically do their comics work and then try to make a mix of, commissions, freelance work, illustration work, something completely unrelated on the side for 3 days a week, teaching, um, lettering, all kinds of small jobs, but it adds up to being able to give yourself 35% of your time to devote to your comic. And that's, for a lot of people, that's a really great situation.
right.
Um, for me, I'm trying to make it so that I would love to be able to do some teaching and do the next couple of books and then see what happens as a result. Um,
The other
so
thing.
yeah,
I was just gonna say that's the other thing. When you look at the industry, like at least like with like mainstream comics like DC and Marvel and things like that, you have
yeah,
like letterers, inkers, colorists and stuff. You're doing all of it, huh?
yeah. I
Because
mean, I think
that's
that I
interesting.
think
Like
at
a lot of
least,
independent artists end up doing all of it.
yeah, I think in the States there's this feeling there seems to be sort of different comics communities. There's certainly the Marvel stuff, and those people are making, I think, some money.
Hmm.
Um, and then you have sort of the independent comic makers who are, a lot of the people that I came out of school with are working on middle grade stuff because that does sort of function like you can get a deal and maybe do a couple of books, and that seems to snowball a little bit. Um, for me, I mean, I've never had an interest in doing middle grade. I've always sort of wanted to do adult comics, and there is a much, much, much smaller audience for that. And, a few years ago, I took the book that I brought to Australia. I took the first chapter and I went to a couple of agents and said, "Can we make this into a pitch?" And across the board, what was said was, "We don't really pitch adult comics because there's really no one's going to pay for that.
Oh,
What
interesting.
you have to do is you have to do the book,
Hmm.
and then once you do the book, then someone may buy it, and then things start to roll. But a middle grade, you can do a pitch. Someone will pay you to do the book. That doesn't happen with adult stuff. Um,
Interesting. Well,
so yeah.
on that note, what kind of like aside from like what are the comics that it sort of inspired you to sort of explore the genre as an artist?
The stuff that's always attracted me has been the stuff that feels really different. Um, I did not grow up on comics. I didn't read comics until I was in my 50s, and I've always been really drawn to, and I think that some of it is because my background's in advertising. I was an art director
Right.
for decades. I'm always really interested in how people use visuals as they do in advertising to kind of help tell a story, as opposed to illustrators who have a style who tell a
Mm-hmm.
story in their style.
Mm-hmm.
So the stuff that I was always attracted to was stuff that generally didn't have panels, generally wasn't doing word balloons, but was doing something completely different. And it was like telling visual stories by using visuals in such a way that it didn't feel like, oh, this is a comic. I mean, my problem is that I open a lot of comics and I'm just like, this just all looks the same to me. And
Right.
I don't see a spread of a 9 grid panel on 2 pages and think, I can't wait to read this. I'm like, oh, I turn the page. I'm not interested in that at all. Um, and so that's always kind of informed my work of like, how can I make this feel different? How can I write the comics that would make me be like, I want to look at this. There's something interesting here. Um, and the thing that I loved about Australia were there were definitely artists. I mean, there were certainly artists that worked in a grid. There were certainly artists that worked in a very traditional sense, but you also had people that were doing like, I'm just going to paint a painting on this page and have a poem over here, and that's going to be a comic. And I just thought, that's what I like. I want something that
Interesting.
I've never seen before, and I have to look at that painting and sort of see how that works. And those are the artists that really inspire me. So, what about you? I know that
Oh,
we're
yeah, no,
going to try to do this call in two parts. So we've got
no, it's yeah, that's fine. We got time, but no, it's interesting you say that because honestly, I think it was Will Eisner. Someone said, when you stop looking at comic books, the best comic books are the ones where you don't notice the panels.
right.
You gotta look at the whole page
Yep.
as like I think that's where the graphic design sense comes in.
Right.
The whole thing has to be one cohesive page before it becomes panel to panel. And I think a lot of books they fail when it's just when all you see is boxes.
Yeah.
But no, for me, I kind of grew up just traditional comic books. I grew up on Batman
Mhm.
and Ninja Turtles and stuff. I love Frank Miller. I like Mike Mignola, but I like stuff that has more of a visual narrative than word balloons.
Right.
I like the comics as an art medium. I love the stories in them, but when I see too many something that's too wordy, it just a part of me just clicks off. It's not that I don't like books. I love reading books, but I like comics for the art first and the not the story, but the writing second. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If you
I
can
get
see the
that. I mean,
difference, Yeah, yeah.
I feel like when I going to a comic school, there was definitely this faction of people who were like, I mean, and my work, it tends to be really, really wordy. And there were lots of people in my class that were like, oh, there's just too many words. I can't read it. And it's like, okay, you don't have to read it. I mean, there's a part of my book with it that's filled with words, and there was plenty of people who were like, I didn't want to read this section, and it's like that's great. If you don't read this section, you don't miss anything. But if you read the section, you'll find out little things about these people that you didn't know otherwise, and that felt like a really smart move to me. Was that I wanted to write, and
Mm.
yet I didn't want the people who hate reading lots of words to lose out on the story, and that was something I thought of as I was writing that. So,
It's interesting, 'cause as you were talking, I was just reflecting on the sample that you had given and the stuff that you had brought and the stuff that we had read. Yeah, I don't think I ever got sick of reading your stuff.
oh,
So
well, that's good
yeah,
because I
no,
get sick of reading it. It's just like I don't want to read this.
no, I
So,
think and I think because of the structure of it, because it felt like a scrapbook, it
right,
really felt, you know, um, I think your book was one of the more personal. I mean, everybody bought like a personal journey, but yours felt really like I was really personal because it felt like you were rummaging through someone's stuff,
oh, that's
and there's
nice.
yeah, and there's like a
I mean, I think
sneaky
that's nice.
quality
That's
to it.
uncomplimented by that.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, maybe not all the time. But in terms of your book, it felt like you're rummaging through someone's stuff, and so everything you found was a little useful piece of information.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you wanted, if you really wanted to piece this together, you would
Yeah.
read all of it. So I never got. There was no point, and this is from somebody who reads like Batman and Ninja Turtle comics, and not like grown up stories. But
Right.
I never thought your book dragged at any point. I thought the
Oh, that's
characters were
nice.
so
That's
interesting.
nice.
Yeah,
It's
and I'm
interesting
actually
because
very
one of the things that we did once they sold it, the editors were like, we want to we would love it if you could cut about 50 pages of this,
shit.
wh- which
Whoa,
was
50 pages.
which was which we did, and then some. Like I think that we ended up taking like 70 pages out, but
Oh
it
wow.
never, as any good person with a diet will tell you, you never knew that the thing that much had been taken away. It was just slimmed.